The smallest beginnings come complex marvels of life. Humble elements in nature make up vast ecosystems. Microscopic cells join together to form the genesis of life. Living creatures are tiny at birth, yet grow up to become strong. As with so many physical organisms, God's spiritual organism, His church, also started small.
We have a lot of individuals who have dedicated themselves and who've shown growth.
To be involved in the work of God, that's something special.
Each individual on the planet potentially can be impacted by what it is we do here.
People are amazed at how much gets produced by such a small group.
There's always something new when you're looking after God's creation.
I think the most important thing is the sheep, is God's sheep. Once you have trust among brethren, then you have a lot more unity.
God said He'll finish what He started, so all I need to do is do my part.
Most organizations wouldn't try to do what we do, but we're not most organizations.
Through God's guidance and blessings, it continues to grow, ultimately to become colossal. In Matthew 13, Jesus taught His disciples that the kingdom of God is like a grain of mustard seed. He explained it would begin as the smallest of all seeds before growing to become a great tree. The members of the New Testament Church are today in training to become kings and priests in God's soon-coming kingdom. As in the parable, the church was tiny at its inception, steadily growing over the years, poised to become great after the kingdom comes. David C. Pack established the Restored Church of God in May 1999. He was determined to uphold the teachings God had used Herbert W. Armstrong to establish in the worldwide Church of God, which had fallen into apostasy. Yet, God had a greater purpose in mind for His church beyond simply holding fast to existing truths. Sections of Scripture that had been sealed became correctly understood for the first time in the modern age, revealing God's plan in dramatic fullness. This process has been taking place throughout a sermon series titled The Greatest Untold Story. Since 1999, many milestones have occurred as God has led and provided for His church. It continues to carry out the first and second commissions, preaching the gospel and feeding the flock. growth has been evident in the church's membership, staff, and ministry, as well as in its worldwide work, impacting the lives of millions. In 2018, the Restored Church of God celebrated its 19th anniversary. On a special Sabbath at headquarters, Mr. Pack delivered comments about the inspiring progress of the work.
We've been a kind of an average group of people chosen by God to do extraordinary things. I think of the growth of people, which pictures cannot really show. They can reflect, but they can't show. The growth in numbers, of course, of people, but the quality of the people. I could never have dreamed on May 3rd, 1999, when I got that notice that I was unemployed again after the Worldwide Church of God 6 years before, that it would eventually come to this. It is ever inspiring. It's a story that never gets old. We're poised to do something bigger, infinitely bigger, because the return of Jesus Christ is so imminent.
Through the 19-year history of the Restored Church of God, much change and continuous development have occurred at its headquarters. Starting out, a tiny staff occupied a very small space within an office building. As time passed and God added to the church, additional employees were hired, more space acquired, and the scope of the work grew.
When I started, there were not very many departments in the work. In fact, in my field, I started before there were departments. We had no information technology, no website services, no media production teams. Those departments didn't exist in the early years that make up the organization that we have now.
Both the first and second commission would not happen without the employees in the background, supporting everything from the internet to mail processing, frankly, keeping the grounds here that are just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen.
The entire staff, we all love what we're doing, we all enjoy what we're doing, and we're all hardworking, enjoying the task, enjoying a little bit of the sweat. Maybe there's a little bit of tears, we don't see that, but the sweat, blood, and tears, working hard to make the campus look as it does.
As a manager, it is important to me that the staff learn and grow. One of the things that we focus on, for instance, is cross-training. We want people to be able to do not only their job, but the person next to them to do their job as well. It makes things run a lot more efficiently. It allows us to do a lot more with a lot less.
My favorite part of coming into the office is the people. The people with whom I work each and every day that have core values that are similar to me. It makes it like no other environment that I've worked in before.
The staff here in the landscaping department has various levels of experience from A to Z, from no experience all the way to having a job in the landscaping field. Teens come to work on the headquarters campus, and they're able to accomplish many more things than they thought they could when they initially start first thing in the summer, and they learn a lot about the responsibility that it entails.
We are doing the work of corporations that have thousands of employees right here in this one campus.
God always brings the right mind, the right person, the right fit for the right job, whether we realize it or not.
Mr. Pack, when establishing Restored, never believed it would be a one-man operation. He knew that a team of faithful, dedicated individuals with varied skill sets and backgrounds would be needed to do the work.
Communications isn't really a person, it's a process. And anytime you have a process and people involved, you need to have individuals as well as teams that are helping that process succeed.
We have what's called the executive team that meets every single day. We talk about every aspect of the work, from personnel to church administration to development, to make sure anything important, anything that requires a decision or just information to keep Mr. Pack informed, flows to him. And that's crucial.
The headquarters staff seeks to support Mr. Pack, enabling him to devote his time to the unique responsibilities only he can perform.
We live in an incredible age where you can study the Bible like in no previous time. Mr. Pack, using these technologies, spends a lot of time in personal Bible study.
When he comes in, he loves to discuss what he's learned with us. He loves to share ideas with others, but he also, in many respects, loves to get others counsel. He gets counsel from many of the senior ministers in the work, and in doing so, he's able to come to a fuller picture, the fuller perspective, and the right perspective to share with God's people.
Although corporate communications can facilitate, Mr. Pack still has regular one-on-one and department interactions, and he does this and maintains a very close connection with individuals and departments.
Departments at headquarters include executive, advertising, church administration, ambassador center, editorial, art graphics, media production services, mail processing, print services, mail receiving, website services, information technology, legal, business and accounting, personnel, landscaping, housekeeping, and maintenance. Managers' meetings are a useful communication opportunity where matters that involve multiple departments can be discussed. While some departments have a more prominent role in the first or second commission, others perform important internal support functions.
I'd like to consider the business and accounting office as kind of a work within the work. And as I look across the various departments, they are there doing the commissions that God has commanded us to do, to preach the good news of the coming kingdom of God, to feed the flock. And so we in the business accounting office give the financial wherewithal that the departments need to be able to accomplish that. And so we support them as they go out and respectively do what they need to do to fulfill the commission. The conservative estimate is that we do just over 100,000 transactions in a given year. And the amount of transactions that are allowed to not be right is zero. And for that, you need trained personnel to be able to do that. It entails individuals that are highly reliable and have a high level of integrity. We have to be accountable to the donors and the co-workers that generously give year after year. We have to be accountable to the members that are obeying God's command to give to accomplish what God wants to achieve here.
It's important to have a legal department, partially because the nature of the society as it is. It's a very litigious society. I've been an attorney for 28 years. I started law school 33 years ago. I've seen the notion of justice change over the years and the system itself change in somewhat dramatic ways. The system is tainted, even though there are still good and caring people within the system. But the system alone will crush those good people over time. Many of the issues in society are cultural issues or actually moral issues that intersect and/or conflict with God's law. But I can help guide the ministry and provide certain guidance or potential remedy. The system as it is breaking down. It's just a matter of when and how it plays out.
The headquarters staff has grown much over the past 19 years. Yet it is ultimately only through God's power that a group of human beings can carry out a complex and challenging work, one that is spreading life-changing truth to millions. The church's headquarters began in a small, inconspicuous space on the second floor of an office building in Wadsworth, Ohio. As the work grew beyond its initial phase, requiring more employees and departments, additional offices were rented. Volunteer upfits occurred frequently, with spaces being renovated to accommodate the unique needs of departments. A point was reached where these facilities had become very crowded. For the work to continue, let alone reach a size foretold in Scripture, a dedicated world headquarters complex was needed. A parcel of land was selected and purchased. Mr. Pack held a groundbreaking ceremony with staff, after which construction began.
First time we moved on the grounds was in the fall of 2011. I remember the first crew that went out was a volunteer crew. The local brethren all got together and started removing all the brush, the briars, the thorns, the thistles from what was the original tree line on the east side of the property. The brethren, the staff, and everyone really made a big difference on what was really just farmland. And we took that and made it into the beautiful campus it is today.
You can go all the way back to Genesis when Adam was told to dress and keep the garden. We're dressing it and we're keeping it. So what we're doing outside is preparing a kingdom-like atmosphere so that beauty has developed into what is the campus around us.
The only way the campus looks the way it is the blessings that God gives us.
We serve a God of quality. And here on God's campus, we try to make sure that everything we do speaks of that quality.
The construction and development of the campus involved many blessings and much hard work. Staff moved into the completed Hall of Administration in May 2013, after which a formal ribbon-cutting ceremony was held for the local community. Two other buildings, the Mail Processing Center and the Media Center, followed. The campus now spans over 100 acres. To date, over 1,600 trees have been planted, many acres of garden beds added, and 4 miles of roads and walking paths created. The landscaping department maintains the expansive grounds with great devotion.
Well, it's important to maintain the grounds here at God's headquarters because it's God's headquarters.
It's amazing to be here. It's amazing every day to work here. What is an example of His way of life, an example of how He wants the whole world to look. And often we get compliments from vendors, from visitors. Wow, I can't believe how beautiful it is. It's amazing what you do there.
When you look at the grounds, the manicured grass, the garden beds, and that's the beauty that you see, and that speaks to the God that we serve. A lot of what we were able to accomplish on this campus with such a small staff in place boils down to being able to plan things out and being able to establish processes that are very efficient and that allows us to keep up with the mowing and with the planting and the watering and all the other things we have to tend to here on the campus. And of course, with God's Spirit, that gives us the extra boost we need in order to finish our day and know that we accomplished everything we need to.
Local members also volunteer time to help with certain projects.
Many hands make light work, and we know that the brethren around the world, especially here locally, are very enthusiastic and zealous about helping here on God's campus, and the opportunity to come together, work as a team, fellowship at the same time. It really builds those bonds. Everyone goes away with a smile on their face. Maybe a little bit of a limp or a sore back, but they're happy to help, and we're happy to have them help here on the campus.
Without the volunteers, we would not have what we have today.
A campus tour is an annual tradition for the field ministers from around the world that attend the ministerial conference.
I would say the cherry on the top is thinking about where we were in One Park Center and being here. It just brings everything together to be able to walk outside, to look outside and see the beauty of the campus. That enhances the whole conference. You almost get a sense of it's becoming like the Garden of Eden in many ways, where you've got all sorts of beautiful flowers and trees that's now maturing, the lawns, even the animals and the birds that's on the campus is so unique and so diverse, and it is fantastic to see.
It's magnificent what has happened just in the past 1 year since I was last here. Just going out towards the west of the campus and seeing the expansion that has gone in and all the wonderful things that have been done by just a very few people it just gives you the encouragement and the inspiration, knowing that you're doing indeed a good thing on behalf of God's work and representing that same government that is starting from here at headquarters.
Teenagers visiting for Ambassador Youth Camp get a similar opportunity. These groups greatly enjoy seeing the campus in person. Members of the local congregation participate in an on-site community garden program. They appreciate God's principles of agriculture by tending crops that yield delicious produce.
Growing up, we always had a vegetable garden. It's something that I carried on throughout my life, even before coming here to headquarters. Just that love for putting a seed in the ground and watching it grow. We have a community garden where various members of the local congregation and some living here on the campus take advantage of, growing fruit and vegetables, being able to really savor something that was grown right here in the soil here at headquarters.
Animal wildlife is also frequently observed on the campus. Each year, primarily during the spring and summer months, additional development takes place to improve and add polish to the campus grounds. Two of Mr. Pack's goals in campus design are for visitors to be able to get everywhere from everywhere and to see everywhere from everywhere. In 2018, land to the west of the Landscaping Center was developed. The most notable feature added in this area is Mirror Lake, named for its unique appearance at night.
It is one of the most beautiful parts of the campus. This lake here fits naturally to its surroundings. It looks like it's always been there, and that was the intent of it. When it all comes together and it's done, it's always far more beautiful than we actually ever imagined. There's been a long time hope to have animals on campus, to have horses, goats, maybe chickens. And recently we were able to purchase a property. We built a nice, beautiful red barn. That project is ongoing. We hope to have animals soon. It's really a vision on the campus, a hope we've had for many years, will finally be implemented this year. One of the projects we're looking forward to and excited to finally begin is beautifying the area north of the Hall of Administration. The large, vast lawn that's there, we're going to turn it into a jewel of the campus. Mr. Pack will provide an overall direction of the Grand Garden, and we take that direction and implement it.
Also during the year, major upgrades were performed on the Landscaping Center. This involved various improvements to the equipment storage area and the construction of a new wing of office space for staff.
While the old landscaping bay and the mail processing center served us well for several years, the opportunity presented itself to move to a bigger space. And everything is organized here in the building. We have all of our tools organized, and everything has a place. It allows us to start the day in a rapid, organized fashion.
The landscaping department's move to this location freed up space in the mail processing center for a maintenance shop. Within it, work is performed on vehicles and other machinery.
It's important to have a maintenance shop in our operation here because it makes us more functional. It makes us able to weld, to repair vehicles. We have a vehicle lift, and that allows us to work on any of the vehicles, from changing the oil to tearing a transmission apart and repairing it.
Carpentry projects also occur in this area. The headquarters campus beauty can be seen in a broad aerial overview, as well as in very close detail. It also carries a majestic appearance at night. Custom uplights illuminate trees throughout the campus, creating a dramatic effect that is much different from daylight hours. Twilight is another unique time of day to observe the campus. The campus takes on a unique look and feel during each of the 4 seasons of the year. In fall, leaves everywhere turn brilliant shades of red and orange, with exquisite color in abundance wherever one walks. In winter, fluffy white snow accentuates the campus's regal features. In spring, plants begin to thrive, and grass becomes vibrantly green. In summer, the dazzling sunshine highlights flowers in full bloom.
You've heard people say, if you've not been to headquarters, the pictures don't do it justice, but boy, we're sure trying.
The change has been so dramatic, so amazing, so unbelievable that it's even hard when the pictures are right in front of you to believe it's the same place.
When the Restored Church of God began in 1999, the internet was just starting to surge in popularity. Tools effectively used by the WCG in the 20th century, radio, television, and print, were no longer the best way to reach people. It was necessary to create a website, rcg.org, to make God's truths available online. Technology's rapid advancement meant that it could also be used in a greater way within the headquarters office.
The work now is almost unrecognizable from the work 17 years ago or 19 years ago. I watched things change from a computer in a closet. That was how we did everything at the time. Now we have a data center. We have multiple floors of equipment, fiber optic cable, computers on everyone's desk, interconnected communication systems with our phones. All of those systems have grown and developed.
We had one cabinet with one server in it that had 1 terabyte of information. And our storage has gone from 1 terabyte when I first got here in 2010 all the way up now to 500 terabytes, and all of the departments are on basically one box this big.
Technology is a tool. How does someone use that tool? If they use the tool effectively, if they use it like the work uses, it can be very, very helpful. Many in the world don't use it properly, and that's why the internet has a very dark side to it, because human nature takes what could be a very effective tool and uses it in a way that could be evil.
Most of the brethren, wherever they are around the world, the way we contact them and the way our scope and reach is so wide and vast is through technology. And whether it's right here locally in Wadsworth, where headquarters is, on our own campus, or whether it's all the way on the other side of the planet, technology plays a huge part in making sure that all of us stay connected, together, and on the same page.
Email systems, electronic databases, and other software vastly beyond anything seen in Mr. Armstrong's time enable a larger amount of work to be accomplished by a relative few.
We use things in mailing with printing equipment and various other tools that allow us to be able to harness our network, harness our resources in a way that not many print shops would be able to handle or to integrate.
If the apostles would be able to see what we accomplish today, first of all, their minds would be blown. They would have a hard time grasping it. And that's how far we've come in today's world with technology.
When we work outside, we tie in various aspects right down to the smartphone and communication between the department and the employees in the department. So hyperconvergence has really changed technology, and we try to take advantage of it in every way we can.
We have members in over 60 countries around the world. And to be able to transact, it takes electronic means to do so. Banks talk to each other through those systems, and we have those systems in place to be able to do that effectively.
When we started, there weren't any smartphones. The internet wasn't what it was today. And before the internet, you'd have to send in hard copy film or photographs that have been printed. Now we're able to receive them wirelessly or just straight from the web.
I was really amazed when I first came to headquarters and started to understand all the tiny little details that go into planning the events, especially the Feast of Tabernacles. I actually looked it up and I found that there's well over 100 multifaceted tasks that are involved with planning the feast. So technology is key.
One of the reasons it's so important for us to use as much technology as we do is it allows us to extend the capabilities of everybody much farther than if we did not have it. We can do a lot more with a lot fewer people if our technology is comprehensive and state-of-the-art.
Creating, expanding, and maintaining the church's website, video presence, and technology systems has been a gradual process, with no pattern from worldwide to follow. Staff were hired to form 3 departments: website services, information technology, and media production services. Website Services, or WS, oversees maintenance and content posting on rcg.org. Information Technology, or IT, manages all hardware and software in the headquarters complex. The department seeks to maintain a stable office production environment, even while performing major upgrades to equipment and IT protocol. Media Production Services, MPS, creates all video content for the church. Mr. Pack began delivering the World to Come video program to present the truths of the Bible in a visual format. The videos direct viewers who want to learn more to literature on rcg.org. To date, 175 World to Come broadcasts have been recorded and are viewed on rcg.org, YouTube, and Facebook, as well as on international television.
Mr. Pack had it in his mind for a long time to create a World to Come video presentation, which up to that point we didn't have the skills or technology to do. Back in 2007, the first Behind the Work film was released. And that was really the start of our department. It was right there, just a single project. And at the end of that project, we all stood back and said, wow, that was a very impactful presentation. And from that point forward, that developed into the World to Come program that we all know today. So the difference from where we started in 2007 to where we are now is vast. And it's really become apparent in the production quality of all of the videos that are made.
Over time, society has become a video world. As online video content became more available and widespread, many came to prefer this medium. People were now less likely to read literature without first having their attention caught in some other way. This required a different approach in how the work would be done, and how it was marketed and advertised.
We live in what's been called a social media-driven world. About half of all Americans, for instance, get their news from Facebook, a social media platform. People are on that medium day in, day out. Therefore, Facebook is a large part of how we advertise within the work of God. We want to meet people where they are. We want, in a sense, to be all things to all people. So people on Facebook specifically are very willing to take the next step to come to our websites, which is the ultimate goal. We want people to come to the storehouse of where all the truths of God are kept so that they can ultimately contact us and, if God is working with them, become members of the church.
MPS also produces video messages for weekly Sabbath services, as well as annual holy days. Viewing a sermon in high definition is a significant upgrade to a cassette tape, as was originally implemented in 1999. In 2018, MPS and IT completely replaced the audio and video systems for recording Sabbath services in the Hall of Administration. This involved a transition from manually setting up cameras on tripods each week to using wall-mounted cameras that can be operated remotely.
Over the last year, Media Productions has worked with the sound team to install a media table in the back of the main hall. The main hall is the largest studio space that we operate on a weekly basis, and the media table serves as an integration between both the sound and video teams to make producing messages in there as efficient as possible.
Special music has also greatly benefited from this change.
To everything there is a season.
Music is a very important part of Sabbath services because we get to come together and sing to God.
This is a rich history. You look all throughout the Bible, music was used in a variety of ways. You have Christ right before he was crucified. He sang hymns with the disciples. You also have people singing for joy. You have people singing while they're in prison. And it is something that is definitely in the Bible, and that is one of the major reasons we do it still today.
It really draws people in, it inspires them, and it motivates them.
And you can bring an elegance that you wouldn't have otherwise.
A time to kill and a time to heal.
Other Second Commission videos include lectures from Ambassador Center, Ambassador Youth Camp, and the Ministerial Conference, campus beauty videos, and videos that showcase large church events, recorded and edited in 4K. Production involves video shoots in various locations, lighting and recording off-site messages, transforming areas in headquarters offices and on campus into behind-the-work sets, and more. RCG.org has come a long way from modest beginnings. Over the years, much development occurred to make the website more visually appealing, user-friendly, and accessible on many devices. It offers users a unique way to study church literature alongside the Bible, with the ability to save bookmarks and add items to their bookshelf for later access. The Real Truth and World to Come areas of the website showcase other content in a separate yet integrated way.
Our website started with very humble beginnings. It was a simple design. It was basically a long string of information. We didn't have a lot of literature. We didn't have a lot of material. There were sermons and some letters. We were doing things that many computers couldn't even handle properly. Everything was based on Flash. The video players were a little bit kludgy.
The only way we could distribute our content was via DVD. So even at the very beginning, there was no way to watch what we produced outside of mailing a physical DVD to the brethren to receive it. So as the years developed, so did our abilities to distribute that content, ultimately to encapsulate social media channels, as well as still producing DVDs, but then posting on the RCG websites as well. So ultimately, it can get into the hands of the brethren as easy as possible.
So we went from a simple website hosted with a small little company to now being one of the most sophisticated websites on the internet, hosted on the largest cloud that exists out there as well. We've come a long way in what is really a very short amount of time.
Preaching the gospel and feeding the flock both require the spread of information. While they involve different audiences, the world and the church, they similarly need materials to be available that people can study to learn the truth. A court decision in early 2000 meant that Mr. Armstrong's books and booklets could not be distributed by the church. It became clear that Mr. Pack needed to rewrite all the literature that God had used Mr. Armstrong to create, as well as produce certain new publications needed for the modern age. With time, much hard work, and God's blessing, this mammoth task was eventually completed. Literature proving the basic doctrines of the Bible began to once again be distributed. The church freely offers over 70 books and booklets, as well as articles, reports, and other materials. Most access them on the internet, while others prefer hard copy. Today, these materials are still the most effective way for those God is calling to learn His ways.
Some people start out with video, some people start out with literature. Ultimately, though, the field ministry has noted, it's those that are willing to dig into the literature alongside their Bible who God is most likely working with.
And they're going to learn something that they're not going to learn anywhere else. The truth of God, the truth of His purpose for all of mankind. The literature is there. We want to provide it free for whoever who asks.
Outside vendors, they see the literature, the quality of what we do here. They want us to make money. And when we tell them that, we give it all away. First of all, it's hard for them to believe. So next, they kind of take a few steps back and they want to know how we can help you do that in a better way.
Print facilities at headquarters began very small, occupying only a small corner within a portion of rented office space. Over the years, as demand for literature increased, additional space and machines were needed to keep up. Today, mail processing and print services occupy an entire building, the Mail Processing Center. Within it, incoming mail is sorted and processed. Outgoing mail is packaged and distributed, and a wide variety of items are produced. In following the grand pattern seen under Mr. Armstrong, the church also began 3 magazines. The Real Truth for those seeking understanding of current events, The Pillar for members and co-workers, and Ambassador Youth for teenagers. The editorial and art graphics department produces these publications. As with other areas of the work, they started small but steadily developed. The advance of technology has played a major role in so much being accomplished. Over time, the number of monthly issues for each publication increased, as well as quality of writing and graphic design.
The world is overloaded with information. So in order to survive in an environment like that, you have to make sure that what you produce is high quality, and we strive to do that with all of the publications and websites that we produce.
One of the most challenging aspects of putting together an article for The Real Truth is the quality of the writing itself. It's a matter of taking that subject that the author may know a whole lot about and putting that in a format or something that fits the voice of The Real Truth magazine. And that's where that process really comes together. But it's a challenge because we want to maintain that author's voice within the standard of what would be printed in a Real Truth magazine.
With the publications, the magazines we produce, they've really grown with the church. They're always improving. You can think of it like the campus. We add more gardens, more to it every year, and we strive to do the same with our publications and magazines. We add more and more so that they can be befitting of a God of quality.
In 2013, The Real Truth celebrated its 10th anniversary with a special issue. The year also saw a milestone. The Real Truth would now be printed and distributed by R.R. Donnelly, a professional print house used by the Worldwide Church of God for the magazine's predecessor, The Plain Truth. To more effectively reach readers in 2018, The Real Truth began frequent online postings of breaking news items, in addition to the bi-monthly print magazine. Each morning, editorial staff gather to brainstorm and select stories for the day's World News Desk postings.
With The Real Truth posting daily news, we've had to keep our ear to the rail, so to speak, on what's going on in the world. That does impact what we do every day because we have to produce every single day.
Well, one of our challenges is, what do we cover? If we're going to cover a certain subject, that raises it to a certain level of importance. Technology and its development has had a significant impact on the department. For instance, through the Associated Press, they have an interface that brings to us those top stories. And from there, it's just a matter of selecting which ones we want to run with.
Once the items have been edited, staff post them on the Real Truth section of rcg.org, as well as Facebook.
Truth, whether a person agrees with it or not, it's still truth. Even with The Real Truth, just like The Plain Truth, that becomes that foundation that doesn't change. So instead of the information adjusting to the people in a contentious society, it's the people needing to adjust to the information.
Freely you have received, freely give. We're engaged in that on a daily basis as a collective work.
That's why we're here, to answer those questions that lead to membership.
Upon establishing the Restored Church of God, Mr. Pack looked to assemble a team to carry out the second commission, feeding the flock. A faithful, trained ministry would be necessary to serve members and prospective members. In the wake of the Worldwide Church of God apostasy, Restored began with very few ministers. Yet God has steadily provided leaders to serve in key roles at headquarters and in the field. Mr. Pack established Church Administration, or CAD, to oversee feeding the flock of God. Today, he continues to serve as its director. 19 years of growth in the church and work has necessitated growth in CAD. Its systems, technology, and infrastructure, planning and execution of large events, daily workflow, leadership development materials, and much more.
The church has grown quite a bit, membership-wise, over the last 7 years. As well, our ministry has grown immensely over that period of time. And you can also see brotherly love and commitment, excitement, and joy, especially over the last year or two. There is a greater sense of unity and a greater sense of excitement for the events that we now understand are just soon ahead.
We went from a very simple, effective, using the tools of the time, computer system, to this multi-building, multi-site, fiber optic connected, super fast, hyper-converged infrastructure that we operate with today.
Church administration is responsible for pastoral care and support functions for the entire church. 2 areas within CAD also fill specialized needs: ministerial support, which assists pastors in their daily functions, and youth services, which focuses on working with children and teenagers. Field pastors serve local congregations and, under the oversight of CAD, work with new contacts as they progress from a church inquiry to becoming a member. They also plan and administer socials and other events in their areas.
We both receive information from the field ministry and also provide information to the field ministry. So church administration is really a hub of information, and then we'll use the databases and the information that's available to us to provide them with the answers they need to take action on whatever item it is that they need to address.
Being a minister is a calling. It's a high calling from God, and we all take that job very seriously. Serving God in that way is the most rewarding thing that we can do.
Our goal as the ministry is to assist people on their route to the kingdom of God, having enough time with them, either in a social setting, at services, at their home, to get to know them. That's special.
The absolute best thing is when you meet a mind that God is opening, and just seeing the sheer joy in people's face when they've now entered into God's church.
The theme that I see through each congregation from San Antonio all the way to Louisiana would have to be the gratitude and the hope that they see as the Bible has completely come alive, and much more of what God is expounding upon us and showing us.
By far, the most profound growth that I've seen in my pastorate is individual growth, where brethren have been in the faith now for a few years, and you can see them overcoming trials, overcoming things that they've battled with in the past, and it brings joy.
And it's very inspiring to see these men and women grow. I'm trying to teach them to think bigger, and we're seeing fruit.
We've seen even more people come to ask us, wow, we never knew that this was the plan of God, and the way that you teach that to us is very, very inspiring. And because of that, we see even more people inquire about coming to church. God shows you that this is His church and that He will continue to call people, and we know that we will do well to serve those people when they come.
Quite a large portion of our congregation are very isolated people, and the only times that they get to meet with other brethren are Feast of Tabernacles and perhaps the spring holy days.
One of the benefits actually of being in a small congregation is the opportunity it provides to really get to know someone.
You get to know people, but there's opportunity for personal growth. There's opportunities, for men to song lead, read announcements, give opening and closing prayers, help with setup, help with ushering, ladies to organize kitchens and socials and get-togethers and gatherings and various other things. So you have an opportunity to get really involved, and you have the opportunity to make a real difference and to affect the lives around you You look at the book of Acts, or you look all throughout the epistles, and there's mention of meeting in people's homes, meeting with people's families. That's the way it started for me. It grew much from there, but one of the ways in which we stayed engaged and stayed involved was getting involved in every single way we possibly could.
A small, dedicated team of transcribers and translators in locations around the world spend many hours each week preparing sermons and sermonettes in Spanish and French, as well as announcement bulletins and handouts. CAD works with media production services to ensure materials are made available for those in need.
Translation is actually a very important part of the work that perhaps we don't think much about. For example, look at the account in Acts 2 when the very first thing that God did right after the Holy Spirit was given to the New Testament church was that they spoke in different tongues, which we know means languages. From the beginning, it's been important in God's mind to make sure people can relate, that they can hear in their own language.
One of the other benefits of having all the technology we have here at the office is providing Spanish translation as well as French and English available to all the members who speak those languages.
Translating the sermons, sermonettes is a very big job. There's a lot of content, a lot of material that needs to be translated every single week in order to be able to provide this service to all the French brethren.
In the Spanish-speaking area of the work, it's only 3 translators that are doing the audio.
I like interacting with our translators. They're an amazing, very inspiring team, and I love actually working with them.
We work very closely with the translators in receiving their messages from the field, as well as helping them troubleshoot audio problems that they may run into when recording. And then we'll package them for the website services team that can then be distributed to the foreign language speaking congregations around the world.
So rather than have to have a translator on site who speaks both languages, we can actually send that out to them directly.
It's really a work of miracles. It's really a work of faith. In English, we say it's raining cats and dogs. Well, you try to translate that into Spanish, or I submit to you any other language, and you'll have fun, and your faith will build, because you have to really pray about, how do I say this?
I have a lot of joy in translating because I see results. And when you're able to see results change lives, it certainly makes you feel that you are part of God's work.
In early 2018, Mr. Kadanek took an international ministerial trip to visit congregations in French Polynesia, New Zealand, and the Philippines. He later shared his experience with the entire church through a presentation that included still photos and videos.
Mr. Kadanek was able to take a small travel camera with him and record scenes from his trip. And then once he got back to headquarters, we then took all of that footage and combined it into a longer Bible study that he delivered so that everyone in the church could see the same sights that he saw, as well as hear the same sounds that he heard on his trip. And it's really one way that brethren all over the world get to be introduced to a variety of the congregations that he was able to visit earlier this year.
As a minister that gets to travel to several different congregations, the one thing that I can tell you, no matter where it is, no matter what country, no matter what language, no matter what race, you feel like you've landed at home when you're amongst God's people. So I think that's only possible through the Spirit of God, and God is love, and that's only possible because of that. There's a connection that's formed, and the connection is not just from the minister to the member, which is important, but it's from the member to the church. We need to know that we're a part of something bigger and that we're all a part of the same thing. And so that's why it's essential that the ministry visit members around the world to make that connection and to keep them strong.
The annual ministerial conference has been an invaluable source of training for field ministers. It provides pastoral education, news about the work, and opportunities to bond with one another.
The meals that we share, the fellowship that we share, getting to have time with other ministers that you do not in the field when you are isolated in that area. It's almost like a mini feast for us.
You meet with men all over the world and you discuss your challenges and their challenges. They're all the same, no matter where they come from. And it creates that bond.
It was a wonderful thing to be able to come into a room filled with leaders and to get to have that exchange and see the great things that God was doing across the whole world. That experience in itself put me on a track that made me want to serve much more in God's work.
One of the things we've really tried to stress and do over the last several years regarding the ministerial conference is to provide areas where we can have practical, hands-on experience, whether or not they're doing it themselves or they're seeing somebody actually do something or perform something in a hands-on fashion. And it's produced really good fruit.
At the ministerial conference, Mr. Pack conducted a role-playing lecture with Mr. and Mrs. Ambrose. In that, Media Productions had to set the stage so that it looked as good to the audience as it did to the cameras to be post-produced for later.
Some of the ways we helped Mr. Pack prepare for the 2018 ministerial conference was through all of the lectures that he gave. He gave many different pastoral lectures, lectures that were catered specifically to how to fish and how to be effective shepherds in the field. But aside from that, he also gave a number of prophecy-related lectures that we assisted Mr. Pack in preparing.
We've seen tremendous growth in the men and their wives. We've seen them take what they've learned at the conference, apply it immediately, and then it becomes a part of them.
By being here at the ministerial conference, learning the counseling skills that we need, we learn to sharpen our skills to better serve the flock.
The major thing that I saw at the conference this year that was different than previous years was the brotherhood and the camaraderie and a real sincere, joyous, excited mindset, smiles on people's faces because of what we're all understanding and learning together and where we see our potential part in it.
The ministerial conference is really a unique event. We're not only streaming it out to a variety of attendees who couldn't make it here on site, but we're also conducting interviews with the ministry and preparing a highlights video that's shown at the end of the week. And at that point, all of our equipment is deployed in a variety of places throughout the campus in order to best do that. We fly the drone at the land tour, so we're taking footage from the air, and then also during all of the lectures, we're shooting B-roll of that, as well as A-roll of all of the lectures of the men speaking that can be post-produced for the ministry once they get back to their congregations as review material. So there's at least 4 major projects that we're doing all within a week's time.
Another tool for the development of leaders is Ambassador Center, the church's educational arm. Founded in 2008, many who have become ministers, headquarters staff, and local pillars have greatly benefited from its curriculum. In late 2017, students and alumni assembled to celebrate Ambassador Center's 9th anniversary. Interviews were conducted with faculty.
The most important degree I ever obtained was through AC. And that is because it focuses on a broad-based education. It brings in the Bible and it brings in the issues about life in a much more substantive way than you can ever get in a typical worldly academic setting.
In the colleges of the world, they teach you what to think rather than teaching you how to think, how to understand God's mind more, and then you can apply it in your own life.
What's unique about the Ambassador Center education curriculum is that I use it every day. It's not just stale information in a book, it's practical information that I can put to use on a daily basis.
But it also gives you more perspective on all aspects of how God's church functions, the government of God, all elements of life beyond just simply a biblical education. It's that broad-based understanding that allows people to learn how to live their lives as opposed to, you've heard the saying before, just make a living.
Practicality is the big word that comes to mind. Things that you can use in everyday life, whether it's how to dress, how to speak, how to write, understanding history, and of course there's also the theological knowledge that comes with the curriculum.
The large events held by the church provide lasting memories for members each year. The Feast of Tabernacles Convention is a preview of the way of life all nations will experience when the kingdom of God is governing the earth. To keep it, members travel to beautiful locations to rejoice and learn to fear God.
The feast would not run as smoothly as it does without the help and volunteers. There's ushering, there's security, there's stage, there's choir. All of these teams need to be large enough to meet the needs of the feast sites, and so we definitely rely on people in the field volunteering their time at the feast to make it run smoothly.
The event is filled with edifying messages, as well as social events, including Family Day, a seniors luncheon, and a dinner dance.
The feast is being planned all year. As soon as this feast is over, the week after we'll start planning for the feast next year.
Spokesman Club is a program that provides unique training in speaking ability, leadership, communication, and service for men in the church. Held at headquarters and in a growing number of field pastorates, each season involves a number of regular meetings, culminating in Ladies' Night. Ambassador Youth Camp is a summer program for church teenagers. Each year, campers and staff from around the world gather at a campsite in Ohio for 2 weeks of sports, activities, learning, and fun.
Every year the world gets harder and harder. The world gets more difficult. And when you're a young person learning how to make decisions in your life, learning how to cope with adulthood, the more difficult the situation is that you are doing that in, the greater chance of failure. And so from our perspective, making AYC the best, showing them that God's way is the right way, incorporating practical examples within it, incorporating the best events within it to show them that you can do these things God's way and be in His church and still have this much fun that the rest of the kids in the world actually haven't even experienced. That's what's so important for these kids, that they have those kinds of memories so that when they're older, they won't depart from it.
Not everyone is able to speak comfortably on camera. So sometimes this can come out in a lot of funny outbursts from the campers at AYC. You never know what's going to come out of their mouths when you're interviewing them.
I believe kids should attend AYC because it's a place where you can... Oh no!
Sorry. Did you get that on camera?
Sometimes I was shocked to hear the heartfelt comments of how much camp really affected their lives.
Everyone here is so nice and sweet, and I've met really good friends here like Maya, and it feels like I've known them forever.
I think being able to come out of your comfort zone is one of the biggest things I've learned from here at camp.
That's awesome. Nice job.
The many elements of these 2 weeks work together to teach leadership skills, provide valuable experience, and help to build character that can benefit campers long after they depart.
It's really all about helping them as much as possible. And if they leave as a whole thinking that this was the best experience ever, then I have to think it was the best experience ever.
A variety of socials are held at headquarters, with many guests from other congregations attending. The Fall Bonfire is a lively time of good food and fellowship. The campus's South Valley, where a warm, roaring fire is built, is the perfect place to sing songs and relax. The Winter Social is another special occasion for all. With colder weather having arrived, attendees gather in the Hall of Administration for a relaxed day of conversation, ping pong, and board games. The Spring Dinner Dance is the perfect opportunity to enjoy dancing to slow and fast songs, accompanied by much laughter and joy. The Summer Picnic is another highlight, including an auction held in the pavilion, a loose change fundraiser, group games, and softball. These eagerly anticipated annual events promote brotherly love, joy, and unity among members. They build bonds that will ultimately endure forever.
We've said for years, members will be the only Bible people ever really see. They reflect God's Word. They are a light individually.
In some ways it hurts to watch the news.
and it should.
We're wading into those shark-infested waters with pearls of truth.
Without those truths, people can't go on to develop God's character and ultimately rule in His soon-coming kingdom.
We see God's way of life, His laws, His rules, His commands as the only way to true happiness.
God's way of life involves immense joy and abundant blessings. Only a very few called out ones are privileged to live this unique lifestyle now. We must continue to zealously support the Church's work of preaching the gospel and feeding the flock. Although millions are being reached by the truths of the Bible, God's Church remains a little flock. When the kingdom comes, it will start as a grain of mustard seed, which will suddenly and rapidly accelerate. This tiny seed will become the great tree Jesus spoke of, and the knowledge of God will ultimately permeate the entire universe.